Should be good there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Oh.
What?
So wait, what did you do? Was it just the dial-in thing that you did different last time than last time?
Honestly, I don't know. But it's doing what it did the first time, where when you talk, when I talk, it's just a phone icon up there. And when you talk, your picture shows up.
Okay. So you don't see me when you're talking?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So if I just want your face to go away, I just start talking.
Just start talking. Good face. Cool. Well, let's get started. It doesn't look like anybody's in yet. I just see a number up here, which I assume is the one you dialed in on. So let's start it. We actually starting pretty much on time this time, thanks to the tech. And to those out there going to be watching this via mostly probably from the blog the following week. This is Hitting Jam session number 6. And I'm kind of deciding this, at least the weekly version of this will be the last one. And we might do like maybe a monthly period, if that's cool with you, maybe like once monthly or something like that. And we'll
figure it out. Whatever you think is fun. I'm contemplating doing some other stuff with maybe YouTube or something, because I really like this. I want to kind of do some more of it. Yeah,
YouTube might be good too. Try some other stuff, and then like you and I talked, and this is kind of making an announcement of before we started these Hitting Jam sessions, is we were looking to create a program, a coaching program that would be somewhat of we haven't decided on the price yet, but some kind of monthly subscription for coaches out there to do what we've been talking about in these jam sessions, which is creating these swing experiments at home and doing the numbers, running the numbers, doing the 10 swings off the tee, possibly 10 swings off the tee, hitting a weighted ball, and 10 swings off live. Those tests that we've talked about in here where you're measuring ball exit speed and you have the launch angle target that we were talking about, and bringing that data, bringing that kind of live case studies, and then doing like weekly coaching calls and things like that. Perry and I will get together on what everything's going to entail. I know I kind of threw over to Perry that we both have online stuff, online courses and things, and so making that accessible. I think it's easier on my end because I already have everything kind of set up through the war room and things like that. But we just got to figure out how to get Perry's access instead of us going in and downloading uploading all the videos into my system and stuff. I mean, we'll see. But the coaching program would have a lot of that stuff. I mean, at least access to all my things. And then we'll figure out a way to get access to Perry's. I know Perry was trying to get into a different software. So we'll kind of figure out how that goes. But that's what we're tentatively working on right now, is some sort of a monthly coaching program that coaches can jump into, and we can help kind of mentor. It's kind of like a mentorship, possibly even a certification. We talked about some sort of a hitting or pitching certification. So just some things kind of on the docket, taking care of the business. Any other things to add there, Perry, on that?
No, we'll just play that by ear, because I'm not exactly sure which direction it's going to go, at least on my end.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with, now I asked Perry this morning, I was like, I said, unless you got something else to talk about, I was thinking about doing underload training, because that is kind of, Perry's the father of that, started that, where it seems like everybody and their mother's doing that nowadays. And some people are kind of, they're kind of specifically doing that. That's their thing. That's their method of training, which is cool. But people don't know where it originated from, and that was Perry. So I asked him, hey, if you don't have anything else to talk about, let's start with that. Okay, well,
we can start with that. We can start with that. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the Twitter stuff that's happened of late, and I did a little bit of research on that. So I'd kind of like to touch on that at some point, but we can start with that for sure.
Let's start with that. Yeah, we'll save the underload training because that's a good thing too. But definitely stuff that's going on right now is always good. So Twitter banter is always fun to.
That might be a great name for a show.
So wherever you want to start, Perry, wherever you want to start on that.
Well, there was some back and forth with the fact that in the old school mentality, which actually made a lot of sense. The old school mentality on where to locate fastballs was throw the ball up, down, in, and out all over the place, because if you're going to throw 70% fastballs, the only way to change speeds is to go inside and then outside and then up and then down. And that changes speeds all the time. It's kind of random, but at least it changes speeds so the hitter's not seeing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And it sort of made sense. And then the philosophy started to lean towards away, 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 and down, because down was difficult to get underneath and drive, and the average player was not hitting opposite field homers. That just wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. And so keeping a ball away made a lot of sense back in the day. Then the EV started to kick in a little bit, and people back in 04, 05, 06 started to elevate a little bit, and then Moneyball came along, and the whole world went analytics-based. And analytics has some kind of notion that the down fastball is still going to limit damage. And then the whole world of hitting decided to take a step forward, a chess move, so to speak, and they started focusing on swinging up. And they stopped putting their foot down. So their chess move was, let's make a more efficient swing, and let's swing up, because all the pitches are coming down, all the swings are going up. That's a lot of happy accidents waiting to happen.
Right.
And now everybody can go off of. So it doesn't matter anymore. You take a second baseman, anybody, any player in Major League Baseball basically has the ability to go opposite field homer. And so those rules, those old rules, just matter not whatsoever anymore. And so the thing that we saw last year, and we're going to see it more this year, is teams elevating fastballs. And it's like the one-dimensional version of just elevate the fastball. But it sets in motion a bunch of stuff. It creates more tunnels. It creates bigger spreads. It makes decisions go faster. And so all by itself, just elevating fastballs is going to have an effect on hitters. The fact that they're flatter at the top of the zone and the swings are going up, there's only one moment in time when they cross. And so the odds of making solid contact up there are not that great. So they have to be perfect with their timing. It's not that it can't happen. It's a minuscule chance. So that was the banter back and forth, was the fact that no. All of the numbers show that the idea of throwing fastballs up is stupid. Okay. So I did a little study, and let me show you this number, because it's kind of crazy. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Basically, I did all of Major League Baseball, right-handed pitchers versus right-handed batters. And if you can imagine fastballs being thrown up and in, the average exit velocity up there is 84.6. The average exit velocity with sliders down and away, which would be in that tunnel, so I chose pitches that would be in a tunnel, is 82.2. And then the curveball down and away is 80.1. And the changeup down and in, actually I wrote away, but it should be in, down and in is 86.5. So it's the highest exit velocity is the changeup down and in. And the reason for that is because it's at the wrong speed going down and in general. Most guys are throwing their changeup harder now. So it's almost exactly the same speed as the fastball away in EV terms. So these are exit velocity of what would happen when Major League Baseball wakes up a little bit and stops throwing pitches in areas that are the absolute easiest to hit. I mean, it really comes down to Occam's razor, is the notion that you look for the simplest answer. And the simplest answer is ball's going down, bat's going up, and if they're both crossing each other at roughly the same time, you're going to have a ton of accidents waiting to happen. And that's what's going on right now in Major League Baseball. Now, whether that persists, I don't know, but that's what's going on in this moment.
Yeah, so something you said in the last talk that we had in hitting jam session 5 was, and it goes along with what you're talking about there, showed illustrated, was that a hanging fastball, which you talk about as down and away, is more likely to get hit harder or get hit more often. Hard hit contact rates goes way up versus a hanging breaker, hanging changeup, hanging slider, hanging anything else but a fastball. It's the
Right.
the hanging fastball located down and away is more likely to be hit hard.
Right. Because the whole world's focused on that speed. The whole world, when you listen to anybody talk about hitting, anybody, I've never heard anybody say, well, we're going to focus on sliders. They always say you have to have a fastball mentality. I can't let go of the fastball. If you listen to them, it's over and over and over. Every hitter is focused on fastball. And when the fastball is down, it's the slowest version. It's the easiest one to see because it goes down right away. You can recognize it. It's the most common thing. So anytime you take a pitch and you alter it, a slider is designed to go straight and then go away from a right-handed batter if it's a right-handed pitcher. So it goes straight, looks like a fastball, and then it's gone. And it's gone to an area that's losing speed. So it creates this spreading apart. Mm-hmm. It makes the receivers go wider, not closer together. And so when you throw the slider up and you throw the fastball down, you're crossing them in the sense that you're throwing the fastball slower and the slider faster. So eventually, the study that I did was a little lopsided because it's not really fair to do this study. But what I did was I took all fastballs in the top 3 zones plus above the zone, right? Or actually, I'm sorry, off-speed pitches. I took the top 2/3 of the strike zone. So the middle 3 boxes, the top 3 boxes, and above the zone. All of that was considered hanging the breaking ball or the changeup. And then I took the bottom of the zone, and I only included the bottom 3 rows plus below the strike zone, okay? And then I ran a study that counted the number of hitters that averaged 90 miles an hour. And at the bottom, it turned out to 12-1 on changeups, meaning the changeup up, you were 12 times more likely. There were 12 times more hitters that were going to average 90 miles an hour on the low fastball than the hanging changeup. So it's not really a fair study, to be honest. It was just kind of a quick look for me to see what happens on changeups up. Are guys hitting the ball hard? The answer is not very often. And eventually it would all even out. In other words, if all pitches were thrown in the wrong place, they would all have the same effect over time because the pitch it's about speed. And when you throw the changeup up or you throw the slider up or you throw the curveball up, number one, I can see it. Number two, it's going faster. And my brain is geared towards fastball. So the closer you get to fastball speed, the easier it is to hit. So eventually that's what would happen. But right now, you're more likely by a lot to hang your changeup and get away with it than you are to throw a fastball down and get away with it.
Cool. And I don't want to take too much time because we did the whole video or the whole jam session 5 last week on early arm bar or lock lead arm. But the questions that came up this week, there were quite a few. I'm sure you saw some too. People starting to actually take it into the lab and they're starting to work on it and they're coming back with the same findings as the 5,000 plus experiments that you did on it, right? And the training I've done with my own hitters that I'm kind of getting the same. And so one guy was saying, number one, that there aren't a lot of modern hitters that are using the lock lead arm. And that's something that we did talk about last time. It's just that what's being taught right now, 95, 99% of the time, is the adjustable slight bend in the front arm. So that's number one. Number two, he was saying, what was he saying about lock lead arm? What was he saying? Shin-Soo Choo. Oh, okay, that was what it was. So he was talking about Shin-Soo Choo because this is the Texas Rangers guy. And Ted Williams saying, yeah, both those guys were more pull hitters with the lock lead arm. Can they still do that away? Can they lock the lead arm and go away hard? So those were the two things that he brought up. So one was that, other examples, and it's not really being taught right now, so you're not seeing it that much. Not too many modern players are doing it. And number two is that, well, can you do the, and he wasn't being critical. He was just kind of asking questions. He was pretty genuine in asking questions. What do you think?
Well, the answer to number one is every major league hitter does it. It's not like it's a secret thing.
Yeah.
Not every major league player talks about it, and not every major league player practices it. But every major league player does it when they hit their hardest bolt, period. Now, there might be a couple of weird examples out there. Like Evan Longoria was a guy who never really got to a place where he was hitting. He was never a 120 mile an hour guy, like the top guys are.
Yeah.
He was in the 111, 110, 112 points, and he was a guy that always kept his arm bent. JD Martinez is another guy who's at 112 is his top out, somewhere right in that range. And when you're a big guy and your top out is 10 or 12 miles an hour lower than some of the other big guys in the league, there's some kind of inefficiency there. But when he does get to the whatever level he's at, Josh Donaldson is the same. He's like 114, but he's not a bigger guy. He's not one of the biggest guys in the league. He's stout, but he is a guy that is producing a lot of energy. But on his 114s, he's locked out. Josh Donaldson is completely and utterly barred when he gets to that point where he hits his biggest bolt. So the answer to number one is everyone does it. Derek Jeter did it. I've got video, probably 50,000 clips of hitters that are locking out at the moment that they hit their biggest bolts. Even players that don't do it normally, they're not doing it normally, but when they get their biggest bolt right before impact, they lock out. Is it because they're doing it on purpose? Is it because they're getting fooled into it? Somebody didn't like that terminology, but to be really brutally honest, if you're trying to get extended at the moment of impact, knowing that you're only going to hit it perfect a few times a year, that right away you immediately send red flags in my mind. If I'm trying to get extended at impact, yet my timing only happens a few times a year that's perfect. So what does that tell me? Well, that tells me that most of the time I'm going to be bent. And it doesn't work. That's why the most elite softball hitter in the sport is Todd Butke. And his locked arm, he was locked completely. And he's facing guys that make Randy Johnson look like a thumber, right? Because Randy Johnson's reaction time is 100. These guys are at like 115 or even more. And so he is hitting 86 miles an hour, between 80 and 86 is the norm, 86 being the very top elite guy, from 46 feet, from Little League distance. That's how hard those guys throw. And so he's locking out, knowing that if he gets beat and hits the ball deep back here, he's already locked out. So the ball's still going to jump off his bat.
Right.
If he's bent back here, the ball's going to hit and it's going to come off a little bit softer. And so that was his thought process. And then when he gets extended out in front, forget about it. But he hit the bulk of his homers against guys throwing that hard into left center, knowing that he's going to be a little bit late more times than not, just like they are in the big leagues. And so when you're bent in that situation, what happens is a lot higher foul ball rate. And when the ball comes off, it comes off softer. I mean, every single guy. I just did a study on Real Muto, and he was in the, where did I get him? He was at 83.6, a little bit higher than Trout, but 83.6 on up and in fastballs. And that's, to me, that's one of those things where, what's the evidence? Well, the evidence is how are guys hitting the up and in pitch? They're hitting it like this. Well, then let's look and see what the results are. And the results are exit velocity goes down. Is that everything? No, it's not everything. Does it matter? To me, yes, because there's another method to be able to hit that pitch. You don't have to bend in order to hit it. And if you have to ask me what's the best option, well, it isn't this, because this is 75% of your max.
Right.
That's the problem that I have with it. In fact, in Trout's case, at 80 miles an hour, when he's at 118 top out, that's 68%, I think, or 69% of his max on that pitch. So what happens when all fastballs go away except for that pitch? That's the only fastball he's going to get. So he's going to get a fastball in, maybe one more above the zone, and then curveball down, slider away, change up down and in. When you do that math, it doesn't work, and that's where we're heading. That's the issue that I'm talking about with this. It's not just fastballs in. That's not the only point. The point is that when fastballs go in, this gets better. This gets better. All the deception gets better, and the decision gets faster. And nothing is ever, I mean, every study ever done, when you speed up the process of deciding, the decisions get worse.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, and that was the problem I was having when I first was reading some of your stuff, or actually taking it in and absorbing it, trying to think about how to make it work and things, was the fact that you're in this kind of adjustable mindset where it's look away, adjust in, or look in, adjust away. And like you said, it's, if pitchers are throwing the soft stuff up in the zone, which speeds everything up, the slow stuff up speeds up, and then the hard stuff down slows down. Like you said, it starts to cross. And so that's why you get guys like Trout and Cabrera are just living in one strategy. They're, like you said, their pitchers are throwing them right into their barrels. And so that once, like you said, it starts to change, and we start, like you said, you see pitches going up, and then you see like sliders going down and away, and curveballs down and away or inside, or like you use it to kind of pop, like a curveball to pop because it goes up. It's kind of like it's the only pitch really that it's kind of different, dramatically different. So you get the hitter to open their eyes, and maybe they don't swing at it, maybe they do, but then you show them something else. You show them maybe up and in again, or down and away. So once you start going away, that then, like you said, it's the corner, or it's the wide receivers that are going this way, and the cornerback having to cover both of them, has to pick one of the wide receivers, basically the one that's more likely to score. He's got to go cover that guy. He can't cover both of them. So there has to be a conscious effort strategy-wise. And again, it's not just, you're not picking it out of thin air. You're deciding based on the pitcher's pattern, how the pitcher is, their strength, weaknesses maybe at the higher levels. And this is actually something I wanted to ask you, was so the hitters at the lower levels, whether it's high school, junior high, or little league, what do you recommend they do with this? Like, can they hunt, or is that kind of too early to do? Are there patterns at that level that you can look at, or is it just kind of like wait until pitchers get better?
Now, even when pitchers are really good, they're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Some of the guys online were talking about that. They're still going to make mistakes. Thank God pitchers still make mistakes. Well, yes, that it's always going to be like that. They're always going to make mistakes. But right now, the mistake is really not a mistake. It's them on purpose throwing the fastball down, throwing the slider down, throwing the curveball down, throwing the changeup down. And so they all have a different flight pattern going to that down spot, because down is supposed to be best. It isn't, but it's supposed to be. And so that's what the philosophy is over the last few years. Even when pitchers get good, right, they're still going to try to throw the fastball up, and they're going to pull it. And so it's going to end up being away. And then the slider is going to end up popping. The curveball is going to end up popping. There's always going to be mistakes. The reason that it won't work in the long run, when pitchers start to understand and start to try to go like this, like right now they're trying to go down and away and trying to show you the pitches as best they can. But the guys that are having success routinely are the ones that aren't doing that. And those guys still make mistakes. They still have curveballs pop. They still have fastballs that go away. And so there's always going to be these random little pitches that show up. And so even if you stayed with the same philosophy, from my perspective, the philosophy of today is a two-strike mentality. And so, like when I started working with Carlos, he described to me exactly what everybody's doing right now. And I thought to myself, well, that's great because you've been practicing your two-strike approach your whole life. And so you're going to be really good at your two-strike approach. Only look at it like that. It's a two-strike approach. It's not your everyday approach. It's when your back is against the wall and you don't have any choice. Well, actually, there's always a choice, but the basic idea behind it is that it's a good philosophy. If you could only have one, Mike Trout and Miggy and JD Martinez and guys that have that same philosophy, you can put Harper in there. I mean, it's not like we're talking about a bunch of guys that can't hit. They're unbelievably good.
Right.
And they've mastered that philosophy, and the pitching just happens to go with that philosophy. Now, these guys will probably, for sure, they'll adjust once the pitching changes. But the adjustment is much, much harder than it is right now. So there's no reason really to change yet other than it's coming. It's coming really quickly, I think. And it might not happen. It's probably happening at the high school level right now in some areas.
Yep.
Because we've had some success getting people to understand EV in some areas, and it's pretty widespread actually. All throughout college, there's probably not a college coach that you can call and ask if they have heard about effective velocity, and they'll tell you yes. They don't understand it yet, but they have an understanding of it. They know that it exists, and so it's only a matter of time before that starts to take place at all levels. But you'll see it at the big league level, I think. This might be one of the few exceptions where it kind of happens at the big league level first. It usually happens last because they're really slow to change. But right now, I think they're searching high and low for some answers.
Right. And it's interesting because working with my hitters, they have actually seen some, and I've been warning them since my kind of diving into the EV side of it and the countering it from the hitting standpoint. I've been telling them, warning them, you're going to start seeing balls up more often, and you're going to start seeing balls in more often, even if the pitcher doesn't have a higher velocity or above average velocity. Because I think kind of part of the myth is, well, if you don't have hard stuff, if you don't have above average velocity, then you shouldn't be going up in the zone or in, because they think everybody's going to get to it, right? And so that's kind of the thing. And I go, you're going to start seeing it with guys that are average or even below average velocity. They're going to start coming up and in. Maybe not throughout, not every team you play, but you're going to start to see it here and there. And so what I tell them is that should be a yellow flag. Once you start to see a pattern, not just a mistake, not just a pitcher, wanting to go down and away and you see the ball up, but it's a pattern. You're watching the hitters before you. You're seeing the ball path as you're on deck or in the batter's spot or in the dugout. You see the ball path kind of going across the letters, like armpit level of the hitters. I said that should be a yellow flag that this pitcher possibly is trying to do that consciously, not subconsciously. And then the other thing is also watch for, because I tell them the default message to pitchers, as of right now, is down and away. Where you're going to see the bulk of your pitching is going to be away or down. But don't just say, well, that's your default and I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to hunt down, or I'm just going to hunt away. Don't just default to that. You have to watch and observe and collect data so that it can kind of confirm that. So tell me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm telling them is I'm basically saying, watch what they're doing. If you see and confirms that default strategy of down and away, then that's where you should be hunting. You're going to get some accidents. You're going to get some conscious balls maybe coming up. But again, take your fishing rod, go to the pond where there's more fish. Is that a good thing to tell them or no?
Yes and no.
High school, junior high.
No, in the sense that if you look at an approach of like a Zach Greinke or the Cy Young year that Dallas Keuchel had, he lived at the bottom of the strike zone, right? So he'd throw a fastball from a lefty. He'd throw a fastball that was coming like middle and then working its way down and away. So it looked like it was going to be a middle fastball at like 88, but it would end up being about 84, 85 away. So it was a decoy. It started middle and it worked away. and then he would start at middle and work it away a little further off the plate. And then he would throw a changeup off the plate, and then he would throw a slider down in the middle, and then he would throw a fastball up and away. And so he set up this area where he would get your focus at about 84, and then you hunt where all the fish are, and then he beats you inside with a cutter off of that tunnel. And the cutter was at 86, 87, so it really was 89, 90. Now, that was his B option. That's the option. That's option B, meaning that's a big time flaw. If you hunt down there, you're going to chase down there, and 3 out of the 4 pitches that he's throwing down there are balls. So it doesn't make any sense to hunt where the most fish are in that case.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to get too far into that, but sometimes the answer to that's yes, but sometimes the answer to that is no. It just depends on the pitcher and how the math works out, and how good does he do that trap. If the trap is not set very well, then you want to go right to the trap because there's free food there, right?
Yeah.
It just depends totally. That's a whole nother world. I don't really want to get into that world too far yet, but in the basic stuff, at least in my programs, the secondary, the level 2 program starts to get into pitch recognition and timing. And then there's some basic mindset stuff. And that's what I would recommend, is that basic mindset stuff, learning how to prepare yourself for what's really coming. And that is to time pitches better, to be on time to pitches, that instead of just saying, I'm going to sit on fastball. Well, fastball that's like saying to an Eskimo, there's snow. And he says, well, we have 50 words for snow. Which one is it? Because each one of them has a whole different thing, right? There's a whole, this is one fastball and this is another fastball. Is it moving this way? Is it moving that way? Is it sinking? Is it not sinking? Is it slow? Is it fast? Is it medium? The fastball is a very misleading term. It's the most deception that you can have is throwing a fastball what looks like one speed and it isn't. That's the number one most deceptive thing. And that's why guys like Trout hit 80 miles an hour on fastballs in, because they don't look in, they look away, and then they run in. And when they run in, it's like a last second, and it's difficult to be able to handle that. So from my perspective, that's probably the number one thing you can learn is how to differentiate between speeds and really learn speeds. That's the reason I chose the method I chose for teaching, which is get the swing down right, and then let's learn to apply it. And so the second level is all about learning how to recognize speed and spins better. And then the last level is to learn how to put it into play in game situations. So level 2 is from my work is the place that explains the beginnings of mindsets.
Now let me ask you this on that timing, that concept of timing. So I'm coaching my 7-year-old or 6-year-old boy. His baseball team kind of got roped into the head coaching thing because all his friends are about a year older. And so I asked, hey, can we bump him up? And they said, well, can you head coach? So because they need head coaches. So anyway, I'm in coach, and I love it. It's not like I don't like it or anything like that. But 6 and 7, we have a couple 5-year-olds that are going to be 6, and then we got a majority of 6, or if not already 7, and then a couple 7's going to be 8. So it's like herding cats, right? So it is machine pitch. It's that spring-loaded machine. I can't remember what it's called, but you put the ball in, and then you step down on the little. It's like a drum. It's like a drum set type thing, and then you release it, and it takes the ball. So in the timing, what would you say? Bunches, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. What would you do timing-wise to help them get better at being more on time with that kind of a scenario?
I would introduce the concept that came from the inner game of tennis. And one of the drills in the time training stuff is it's the very first drill that introduces you to the concept of being all in, the 100-100 idea, 100% on time with 100% of your swing mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
People misunderstand that a lot, and it really is not what it sounds like. It sounds like I'm swinging as hard as I can swing, and it's all about hitting homers, and it's really not. That's not really the concept. The 100-100 is taking my A swing, my very best swing, and it is my very best swinging to the point where I got to call timeout and put my shoes back on. No, it's whatever I can control 100% also. So I have to be able to control that, control the swing speed, control the swing line, whatever I can control 100%. I want that to be my swing. So that's my 100 when it comes to swing mechanics. And then the timing is being on time to that pitch. So if I'm getting a pitch inside and I'm pulling my hands in to hit it, I'm nowhere near 100% on time.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time I lose timing or I'm too early, I'm going to lose exit speed, because exit speed equals swing efficiency plus timing. And I mean, there's some context up in there too, but assuming I hit the ball solid, if I'm on time with my A swing, then I'm going to be at least 90% of my exit velocity max. And as soon as that number goes down into that 60 or 70 or 50% range, then one or both of those things is off, the timing and the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I chose to go with that methodology, because it gets right to the core issue. Bill James said, if you want to change the game, you have to ask big questions and answer them.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest question there is what causes hard hit balls? And the answer is 100-100. When I'm 100% on time with my A swing and I pick out the right pitch, I will do a lot of damage. I will create harder contact. And when pitchers understand that and they take that away from you by deception, it makes it very, very difficult. And that's where all these questions are buzzing around, because people don't understand that it's not just about me being an athlete and trying to adjust my swing. There's no time for that. It doesn't work like that. The human body it takes too long to swing the bat. And yes, you can cheat time a little bit by cheating your mechanics, but in reality, you're cheating your mechanics with a lesser swing. Mm. And so thank you is what I would say as a pitcher. Thank you for doing that, because you're not going to be at your max. And if I can hold Michael Jordan to 25 points to the 50, I feel like it was a pretty good day.
Yeah.
and so I think that's how you have to look at it with superstars. If they go 4 for 4 with 4 singles, which it's not likely. It's more likely that they're going to go 1 for 4 with a single and a couple of punch outs and a couple of really weak hits. That's where I think the reality of where things are heading. And I've gotten off track completely. So you got to bring me back. Where do we start this?
I think you answered it pretty good there. I think you did pretty good. I wanted to, because we got about 20 minutes or so, I wanted to move into the underload training, if that's okay with you, unless you got something else on the Twitters.
No, that's good.
So let me lead in with this. So there's, I think AxeBat and some other people they have a $600 bundle that they got one bat that I think is 20% over or 25% overload. They have one that's 20 or 25% underload, and then they have the regular bat, right? The regular bat size. And they're selling it as an overload training system, which it is. And this is a conversation you and I had back, I think, in the fall. And I was going to the guy who, for those of you that are shocked out there, that Perry originated this, and he can talk about Greg Cook, who's one of the physical therapist guys for the functional muscle screen. And I think it's performbetter.com or something like that, or functionalmovement.com, I think, is the site that he's on. He's a pretty big dude in the corrective fitness world, and as a guy that I've kind of studied and things like that for functional movement. Well, he actually gave Perry a compliment, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, or maybe even more, that
it was in the 90s, dude. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was before I did the Jay Bell video in 2000, so it was like probably 95 is what I'm going to guess.
Okay.
I mean, actually, it might even have been 92, because I remember I'm pretty sure it was somewhere closer to 92 or 3. But I'm not positive. It's just that's just a wild guess.
Pretty far ago, and Perry had talked to him, presented to him, demoed to him about the over-underload training for hitters, and Greg Cook gave him a compliment. Said, "Wow, you're kind of ahead of your time there on that." So for those out there, Perry originated this concept. Maybe some out there could say, "Oh, I was doing this before the '90s," maybe, but your stuff,
for sure,
you know,
for sure, people were doing it for sure.
Yeah,
but they were. I mean, Babe Ruth did it. He swung a 54-ounce bat at times. I don't know how often he used that in the game, but he was swinging a 54-ounce bat. It's nothing new, that concept, but it's the idea of a couple things that make it different. One is end loaded is one thing that I think is super important.
Well, Perry,
and the other thing is going way over 20.
What you're going to say, Perry, compare it to the ACT system where it's 20-25% over and under, and does that go far enough? Kind of base your answer kind of around that. Does it go far enough?
In my opinion, no, because I think theirs is less than 25. I think it's 20. But honestly, I don't know the answer to that. But I don't think that when you add a little bit of weight, I'm not saying that it's not effective, because I think that there's some proof that it is mildly effective. I think they talk about having over 6-week periods, they gain X amount of bat speed. And I don't doubt that. I have no doubt that it works. But whether or not it works at the highest level, it's like, would I get stronger if I did lightweight in the gym as a pitcher? And the answer is, yeah, I probably would show some slight gains, right? But what they're recommending at the elite levels of training is really heavy weight, right? Doing squats with a lot of weight, because they're trying. Yeah, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So why not just 20% on that? Just 20% over the weight of the bar. Well, I mean, I don't really know why you would cap it at the lightweight when it comes to swinging the bat. Because here's what happens with swinging the bat. I hope I still have my little.
I wish I could give you my bat. I could just give it to you over there.
My little follow-through bat. A couple things happen from my perspective on this. One is the weight, if it's end loaded, is going to want to go to the ground, mm-hmm. right? And so when I first started this training, it was, I don't want to say as punishment. It wasn't really punishment, but I had a player who had a hard time focusing. And so I made him swing. He was a 13-year-old kid. And I made him swing an end-loaded, really heavy 54-ounce bat. And it would just drag down like this. So he had to work his butt off in order to get the barrels anywhere near being in line long enough to hit a ball solid. So I told him I wasn't even going to talk to him until he got about 10 line drive swings. And that would keep him focused and really concentrating and tapping into his backside, because the only way he could keep that barrel up was to not let his backside collapse. Mm. So by releasing the backside better and by holding that in a firmer way, he actually started creating some serious swing line, even with that super heavy bat. And then after a couple of months of that work, along with his normal, really lightweight bat, that 13-year-old kid started swinging a 34, 31 like it was nothing. Mm-hmm. And it was really eye-opening, and that's what prompted me to call Greg Cook. Mm-hmm. And I asked him specifically about the end loading, and he said, no, that's better, because number one, you're going to become aware of it. Number two, your body's going to remember it better. Mm-hmm. It's a stronger
signal.
What's the right word?
Signal.
Yeah.
To the brain.
Yeah. And so you're more likely to remember that. And the problem that everyone has with end-loaded stuff is that it makes you cast, like we've talked about with this locked arm. Yeah. And the answer is yes, it does. Yes, it does make you cast. And I don't care how hard you try, you will cast with an end-loaded bat. But what you're doing is you're trying to hold it and not let it cast. Mm-hmm. And it's in the holding of that actually gives you that strength. So when another trainer friend of mine said that when a player loses, or when anyone loses function of a muscle, the way you get the muscle reactivated is you push, and the natural tendency is for the muscle to push back.
Right.
Well, it made sense to me that if I'm trying to hold this and it doesn't want to be held, and I'm trying to hold it and it doesn't want to be held, and I'm trying to hold it, in the holding of it, when I get a regular weight bat in my hand, it's super easy to hold that bat leg angle.
Right.
So now I can get into that position and hold that angle that Josh Donaldson gets to virtually every time he hits a bolt. When you see him, I've got pictures of him where he looks exactly like this as he's pulling through. And then you can put it right next to a golf pro who's hitting like a 450-yard drive, whatever the max is now.
Yeah.
And he looks exactly the same. And it's because that's the most elite movement to create speed and consistency. Not just speed, but speed and consistency. And that's where I think people get lost with it. And then the answer is, well, yeah, but it's a golf club, and okay, but I'm still getting an object to an exact spot. And even though the ball's moving, if I don't know in general where the ball's going to be showing up and hitting, if I don't know that this guy's going to throw a fastball in, it doesn't matter what methodology I use. I'm not going to get the sweet spot of the bat to that up and in spot no matter what I do.
Right.
So the philosophy of waiting until I see it and then reacting and making all these swing changes in the middle of a 95-mile-an-hour fastball or a 70-mile-an-hour curveball is ludicrous. I mean, who's really guessing there? Yeah. The guy who goes up with a plan and is planning on getting the barrel to a certain spot, or the guy that and knowing that he's right based on, I mean, I can honestly say in the period that I worked with Pena, we never got it wrong. It was never a matter of getting the game plan wrong. It was always correct. It was only a matter, and he'd be the first to tell you, it was only a matter of execution. So you're not going to get to that up and in pitch unless you're planning to get to that up and in pitch. And then, honestly, I don't know that it matters all that much what method you choose, but in the overload underload theory, if you are trying to get to a place where you're holding on to that bat leg angle, you will hold it eventually. It's not going to happen with the heavy bat. It's still going to escape. It's going to escape a little bit less as you get better at it. But when you get a regular bat in your hand and you hold that angle for that long period of time, now when you release that bat is traveling faster than it ever has before because you have all that tension stored in the wrist. That's what the bat leg angle in essence is gonna do. It creates one long lever, and then one fulcrum. And all that tension is in that one fulcrum, ready to be hammered, ready to be released. So that's the idea of that. And when you swing the heavy bat, and then you swing the light bat in order to make you go faster, I don't know if there's a magic number. I honestly don't think that there is. I think you could go super heavy, you could go medium heavy, and you could go light heavy, which I would call the 3 bat systems that are out there now at trying to stay at 20%. It's kind of a safe way to go because their theory is that if I keep it, and same with the end loaded heavy bats, they're trying to keep it so that you don't have the bat lag problem. And I'm saying that I want the bat lag problem. I want you to have to hold that. I want you to have to work hard to keep that angle. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Because
if I'm just going to make the same swing with all the weight right here, all I'm doing is teaching my hands to go slower. So how's that good? You know, I mean, there's a problem with everything that you do. There's no perfect way to do it, I don't think. But I do believe that if the harder you make the drill, unless it's just so hard that it makes the mechanic ridiculous, which it doesn't, because I've done studies, a bunch of studies with, and I don't know what would be 20% of 30 ounces. What is that?
20%.
If you get a 30-ounce bat.
10 is 2, so 2 times, so 6 plus 6?
6 ounces.
Yeah.
So when Tim Hires and I, the Red Sox coach, did this test with these players in Georgia, and I can't remember the year. It was like 2005 or 4. It was early in the process. But we did a +10 and a -10. So that's a little bit more than 20%. And it was astounding what we found with those tests. And I had done that same +10, -10 with a bunch of amateur kids also at lower levels. And what I found was really astounding when it came to both the video of the players that were swinging, because we had video of every swing, and we had the data. And the data was that their consistency numbers went up with the heavy bat because the backside supported it better. And it was amazing because you recruit muscles, the backside got better knowing that it had this heavier weight that it had to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so players trying to hit that target were way better when they had the heavy bat than they did when they had their regular bat. And that was kind of shocking. I didn't realize that was going to take place when we first started the testing. But that was one of the very first things that we found out about heavy bat testing, was that it helps recruit your lower half to work better.
Right.
So that's the reason why I went into it, was because of that testing, that early testing, and talking to Greg Cook and the results that I was seeing with players.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on that. A couple things. One is, I think I mentioned in one of the first jam sessions we had a case study of one of my buddies. His son and my son are going to the same kindergarten class. He's got a daughter who's a freshman softball player at a local high school here, and he didn't do anything with her mechanically for 6 weeks. It was all over underload training for 6 weeks. And she went from, again, freshman in high school, she went from exit speeds of, 55, I think is where she was, 55, and she ended up at 62 to 63 miles an hour at the end of 6 weeks, just over underload training, no mechanical changes. So that's a case study. The second thing is, and this is what I learned from Greg Cook in functional movement, is there's a thing called reactive neuromuscular training, or RNT for short. And basically the idea is, in corrective fitness, is that if you have somebody who does an overhead squat, I don't even know if I can get this in the video. So I got my hands doing an overhead squat, and I'm holding like a PVC pipe or bat or whatever, and I go into a squat. Well, most people are going to start to bend forward, right? And so in order to correct that, and many other things in corrective fitness, is to basically have that person grab, they have Cook bands, but you grab think about the bicep curl bands, the Jane Fonda ones the latex bands that you can get at Big Five or Dick's, right? So you grab the handles, the client grabs the handles, they go into that overhead position. You, as the trainer, would grab the middle of the latex band, right? And you would pull it down and away. So they're holding on to the handles, you're holding on to the middle part, and you're pulling their hands, like you're trying to pull their hands forward. Basically, they call it feeding the mistake. So you want the hands to start coming forward, so they actually have to go the opposite. It's what you were talking about with
right.
If they're dysfunctional movement and the hands this way, and you want to create strength, and you push against it, and they push against it, right? You feed the mistake, and then they push against it. So when we're talking about the over-underload stuff, so that's basically the same thing, except you're swinging a bat. So we're not taking bands and pulling it, specifically pulling it, but the weight itself, +10. So this is the anchor bat. I'm actually, they put together a system as well. This is their Goliath. You can see Goliath right here, right? The name Goliath. So this is the +10, and this is all Perry. So when I was talking to Perry about it, Anchor Bats based out of South Carolina, they're all made in USA, all handcrafted bats and stuff like that. So they're doing a system to match axes, but it's going to go to more, it's going to do more with it. So we're, instead of 20% up, 20% down, this is a +10. So this particular bat's a 32, 42, and they have their under, I think, is just a -5. I don't think if they tried to go more, it was going to compromise the bat. So you can hit with these live, right? And so the weight of this bat, it's all inloaded. And so the weight of this bat feeds the mistake. So the mistake is for the bat to drop. So as Perry's talking about, you fight that keeping the barrel up. So when people were asking me, when we were talking about the lock lead arm thing, right? And they said, well, how do you train that? Because one of my hitters that's up in the Bay Area, and they come down and work with me every once in a while throughout the year, a couple times throughout the year. And he was asking me, when we started doing it, like, I love how these coaches actually tried it. You know, they
yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you know, Johnny's doing really well with the lock lead arm. He's crushing balls, but inside and up, he's having a hard time. So then I go, okay, here's two things you do. Number one, grab a heavy bat, heavy. So overload. So that, like I said, this is a +10 anchor bat. And you guys can go to the startinglineupstore.com. I'm actually going to get it up today. So it should be in the startinglineupstore.com. For the anchor bat series, and it's $600. It's I think it's the same as the axe bat. They do the same thing, except this is going to go a little bit further with it. So you take the heavy bat and you tell the hitter the bad cues we've all been taught: swing down, barrel above your hands, get on top of the ball, basically trying to fight that barrel from wanting to drop. And number two is, so the heavy bat, and then number two is kind of goes along the same lines as we talked about in the last video, is with the lock lead arm, and Perry's been talking about too, is not letting that casting happen. So keeping that barrel close to the back shoulder as you're turning. So we talk about the 3 different catcher's gloves. We talk about, imagine a catcher who is like a hologram that's sitting with his glove or her glove in line with the hitter's belly button. Okay, before the hitter even swings, the glove is in line over the plate, in line with the hitter's belly button. There's going to be another glove that would be for inside and up, pitches up in the zone and inside. So you're basically keeping that locked with the front arm, and then you're keeping that handle of barrel above your hands, barrel above your hands, barrel above your hands, and then you're going to release it into the belly button catcher's glove. Pitches middle third, the catcher's glove's in line with the hitter's back foot, and then pitches outer third are going to be, you're going to release the barrel where the real catcher's glove is. So real catcher's glove, back foot catcher's glove, and belly button catcher's glove. So combination of those 3 things with a lock lead arm, so we can hit all pitches. It depends. It's not the lock lead arm that's causing the casting. It's when the barrel leaves the shoulder. So the heavy bat, the over-underload training is huge. At least the overload training part of that is huge. So those are the things that I do, or at least look for in the swings. You can't just, like Perry says, the hitter has to be trained when they use a heavy bat. You can't just throw it in their hand and it be intuitive for them to start hitting, because it'll drop the barrel and they'll start swinging up. So they have to fight that. It's that feeding the mistake thing, the reactive neuromuscular training that Perry's figured out early on, and then confirmed it with Gray Cook. Gray Cook is legit. I mean, that's a dude that's legit in the corrective side. So anything to add on that, Perry?
Yeah, we started selling these the small diameter, 1-inch diameter timing sticks.
Yep.
As a result of that same basic concept, which is doing the underload overload only with the small barrel. So with the small ball training, when we start to get into that next level, hitting the smaller diameter bat, and we've got 2 different weights. One of them is again super overload. And then this one is like 22 ounces, so it's underload by quite a bit. And by the time you're done with that thought process, you are battling, because the heavy one makes you want to cast, and you hold it as long as you can, but you're never going to make contact with the skinny little barrel with the little 1-inch. Actually, the golf ball's a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah. But
a golf ball size wiffle ball, or what we use is the accelerate balls, which are foam training balls, and you can throw them at three different, the same arm action, but because they're different densities, they're gonna come out of your hand at different speeds. So you're actually training 3 different speeds with the same arm action, and you're trying to do that with this really tiny little nothing stick. Yeah. And one of them, this lightweight one, is going, way over 100 miles an hour of bat speed, and the other one is going much slower. And yet you can learn how to square up those really small training balls with the same basic thought process. So this from like all the way back to, I want to say, the early 90s, we were using some kind of sticks in order to create that sweet spot awareness, being able to center up the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But it also works on the line, the swing line. Because if your swing line's not good, I don't care who you are, you're not hitting this thing solid with a small diameter bat with a small diameter ball. The contact is not going to be there if that swing line's not pretty good. So for me, there's a lot of that has to do with overload, underload. And that's part of my patent as well, because when I first discovered the underload, overload, the other notion about that is it's timing. Every time you change the weight, you change the timing.
Mm-hmm.
And so by changing the length and by changing the weight, I'm going to change the timing of every contact. So if you throw me a BP pitch at 70 miles an hour and I hit it with 3 different bats, underload, overload, normal, then I'm learning timing at the same time, because I have to start the process slightly different in order to make those timings the same. And so that's another element of the underload, overload is it's timing. You're training your body. The way that I describe it is the antibiotic theory. The 3 bat weights was designed to inject my body with bad timing. I put this heavy bat in my hand, and now all of a sudden it's really hard to time the pitch. But then once I get used to that, now I switch it to the super light, and then I come back to the regular weight. And so my body is constantly being stretched. It's constantly having to work at that inner body timing. And so I'm going to get better and better and better day in and day out of, like, think about it like timing adjustment knobs. I'm going to adjust slightly every time I change the bat weight. And so I'm training my body to get more sensitive to timing. And the more I do that, the better and better and better it gets.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's a great addition to that. That's the variance, using variance, and like you said, with the balls, really cool, the foam balls where they're different densities. So going through the same tunnel, they're going to go in different directions and things like that. Also too, just mixing up all kinds of balls, throwing tennis balls, racket balls, baseball, softballs, golf wiffle balls, or wiffle balls in general. Again, another timing element that you can use, and that's fun a lot, especially my 6-year-old, hitting different balls like that or swinging different bats. I mean, he's always switching bats, his bat to the big old plastic blue bat or plastic, and it's just cool because you get to see him, or the hitters, you get to see them make these adjustments, and it's fun because there's always something changing, right? The kids,
right,
they have the attention span of a gnat, as Mr. Baseball, Tom Selleck, the attention span of a gnat. So you have to keep them going. So those are some great ways to do that. So I want to.
Well, we went away from your earlier question. Just 2 seconds on that.
Yeah.
Have them do the right now. So it's basically whenever the ball's in the air, they say right now, and then now is impact.
You're talking about with the 6-year-olds?
The little guys,
yeah,
the youngsters, yeah. Get them saying right now. And what will happen is, number one, their attention will stay better because you're giving them something to do.
Yeah.
And their mind is busy, right? But it allows them, the concept in Timothy Galloway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis, is that your conscious is busy while your unconscious is making a move. It's being freed up to some degree. And so I know that goes opposite. That goes right in the face of some of the stuff that's being taught now, that you can't have any kind of thing like that. You can't think about stuff. But the answer to, and from my opinion, and I've been doing this a very long time and had a lot of success with players learning how to make that adjustment through that concept, the concept of keeping the mind busy and giving them something to do, the conscious mind, while your unconscious mind is making a movement. And that's something that I would highly recommend with those little guys, is make them make a really good swing with like picture perfect load and then, but use the right now or the and now, as Carlos said on MLB. There's no really one way to do that, but that concept will help a ton.
Cool. All right. So since we're great point there, and I was kind of thinking that as when we first were starting to talk about it, so I kind of answered your question because you brought it up in I don't know if it's jam session 3 or 4 or whatever it was. We were talking about timing. But we're getting up on this hour, so I wanted to, I know you're busy dude, so I want to let you go, be respectful of your time. So we mentioned a lot products wise on here. So again, Perry, you can go to his site, hittingasaguest.com. Perry's still the EV25, still good. The coupon code EV25.
Yeah, I can't do that on the,
No.
I can do that on any of the training online video courses.
Yep.
But the other stuff, the hard stuff, is a little bit tougher to do those because there's not that much margin in there.
That's okay.
The timing sticks are on my site now.
Okay.
The accelerate balls are there also.
Okay.
But
I'm going to see here, just go there real quick so I can give people hittingasaguest.com. Okay, time training. My computer already goes to it, the time training part of it. Let's see here. So shop. So you'd go to hittingasaguest.com, click shop, and then in the shop, so there's got Inner Circle membership, online academy, books, DVDs, training gear. Would it be under training gear?
Yeah,
The
timing sticks.
Yeah, so you got 5 different things. Yeah, it's got the timing sticks, resistance belt, warm up, hit warm up, step 1 stride control, and timing ball set of 36 balls. Cool. So all that stuff's there. You guys want to jump on over to his site and get some cool stuff there. But again, the EV25 coupon code is only good for the online courses. When you get into actual physical products, your margin is a lot smaller, so you can understand why that EV25 wouldn't go for that, because he would be basically losing money doing EV25 on that. So anyway, and for me, you can go to you're not in the chat here, so I have the link to my free, I know it's floating around on Facebook somewhere as an ad, the Catapult Loading System book, free book, just pay $8.95 shipping and handling. And then you get a bonus. You get the Power Hitter 2.0 Engineering the Alpha Essentials Power course there. It's kind of a sliver of the full Catapult Loading System offer. But with that, also to Perry on Twitter. He's more active on Twitter at EV Perry Husband.
We're working on that. I'm working on that.
Get away from it. It's like I know it's horrible, but when you get busy, you obviously don't spend as much time on it. But there are some really good talks going on the last week or so, especially opening up the conversation on the locked lead elbow, and I think we're winning some people over there. They're going out and at least testing it and trying it for themselves instead of being the armchair. I call them the armchair quarterback coaches that they quarterback from their couch and they say, well, this doesn't work, and they never even try it. And so those people we don't want to spend too much time with. But so anyway, any other parting thoughts, Perry, before we shut this down?
I'm golden, man. Thank you for your time.
You got it, man. Hey, thank you for your time, and we'll do this again. Maybe we'll keep it on a weekly, Perry. If you're liking this, then we can keep doing it. It's up to you. But we'll kind of maybe touch base this next week and
all right,
see what we're doing.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Have a good rest of your day. Have a good weekend.
You too, man.
All right. Bye.
The Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know repeatable hitting power does not start in the hips? Have you heard the expressions, load and explode the hips? Power comes from the hips. Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that will show you how we added 48 feet of batted ball distance instantly. And it's not all about the hips. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.